Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside PressBox, presented by our friends at Maryland Mutual Mortgage. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and back with me is my co-host, back with me, Rob Long. It's good to have you back, my friend.
You don't mean that. Thanks, Stan. Today we'll be talking Baltimore boxing with my man Vince, the ambassador Petway, a member of the Maryland Boxing Hall of Fame and former student of the late Mac Lewis, also former student of my high school, Northern High.
Really?
That's
okay.
Right.
But joining us now is Lou Raffetto, who was president and COO of the Maryland Jockey Club from 2001 until 2007. He's here tonight or today to talk about keeping Maryland live racing alive. Lou, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
And a happy, healthy new year to both of you gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Especially Lou.
And to you too.
All right. Seriously, we know now that Governor O'Malley showed some pluck there by putting together things to keep live racing around at a reasonable level of dates for 2011. Tell us how that deal got brokered, but it looks like 2012, it's a whole wide open again.
Well, it was a one-year deal, and again, the industry has to applaud Governor O'Malley for making the move that he did make. There was a logjam there. Within 24 hours of the last Racing Commission meeting, there was a 180-degree move in the situation in Maryland. It was a very nice Christmas present for the horsemen and for the employees at the racetrack. The governor was wise enough to take money from the Economic Development Fund and front the operation of the Maryland Jockey Club. That money, which is approximately $3.5 million, will be repaid from the revenue from slot machines, from the 2.5% that's generated for capital improvements. So it's not costing the taxpayers any money. It's just being essentially loaned to the industry on a short-term basis. And in addition to that, the horsemen agreed to give them a contribution of $1.7 million.
You said it was a 180-degree change somewhere within the meeting. What do you think caused that change?
Really, the governor stepped up. There was a logjam. What the ownership wanted, which was diametrically opposed to what the horsemen wanted to give them, and the ownership themselves, because there's two different parties there,
right.
They had two different opinions themselves. So it looked like there would be no racing next year, no simulcasting at all. And the ownership was demanding certain things. Governor O'Malley stepped in and essentially said, look, here's what we can do. You have a problem with your operation, this is what we can do. Let's get through this year. Let's give the operation a chance and the slots a chance to kick in. And again, he did save the industry for 2011.
He did save the industry for 2011. Yeah. But as we've seen so many times, whether it's a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal, it goes down to the wire the next time. Mm-hmm. It seems like the governor could have and should have and had the leverage to perhaps put in some stipulations here where these guys had to agree to meet and make some progress on 2012 and beyond.
Well, again, they did meet, and people were digging their heels in. And again, they did wait till the 11th hour. Unfortunately, certain things were put off from June to September, September to November. And again, let's just hope that going forward for 2012, the same situation doesn't play out. Because right now, as we just stated, 2011 is set, but 2012 it's a wild card at this juncture.
I guess this is piggybacking off of what you and Stan are saying. I feel like race fans can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, but when will they
Not
ever?
only race fans, but the horsemen.
Yeah, horsemen as well. But when will we ever get to the point where we can actually wash our hands of the trouble and know that we're going to have racing here in Maryland for an extended period of time?
Well, that's exactly the key point here. I think what racing in Maryland, the biggest problem at this juncture, quite honestly, is dysfunctional ownership. You've got, and I really don't see that changing. It's a marriage that really doesn't make sense. You've got an entity on one side who's essentially it's a hobby, and on the other side they have a fiduciary responsibility and recognize that.
Penn National being the fiduciary people that are responsible.
Absolutely, and Frank Stronach, and again, it's most people that understand racing know what he has done. So essentially, I think what really needs to be done going forward, they need to take a look at, quite honestly, what was being called for is new ownership, maybe a new racetrack. I mean, think about what happened with the Orioles. Think about what happened with the Colts,
With the Ravens.
with the Ravens coming.
Yeah.
I mean, the authority came up and they built new stadiums for both of them and managed to bring the Ravens in. They managed to keep the Orioles here. I think it's time, realistically, if the governor and the legislature cares about racing, they've got to look at the situation, knowing and understanding this ownership isn't going to work long term.
Yeah.
That they need to do something and possibly look at a new venue somewhere in the state that would not have to cost the taxpayers any money.
Lou, we've got less than a minute. Quick question. You wrote the piece in PressBox in December, and it was basically laid out the whole story about Frank Stronach. How did he maneuver this to have been in a position that he was in, clamoring for slots for a dozen years, and then slots come right at the moment where his company is in bankruptcy, which is sort of the way it worked out. They could have come up with the money for the filing. How did he manage to do that?
Well, unfortunately, with Magna, if people are afraid to make a decision unless Frank blesses it, and that's part of the problem with it. And in Frank's reality, he doesn't really believe that one needs slots to be successful. So they were afraid, his people were afraid to pull the trigger and write the check that night that would have made them a legitimate bidder on the process.
All right. Frank Stronach, of course, the guy who really has been at the helm of this sinking ship. Lou Raffetto, we thank you for coming in. It's the final week of the regular season in the NFL, and Joe Platania brings you the latest Ravens news at csnbaltimore.com. 5 Ravens were named to the Pro Bowl squad this week, the second most selections of any AFC team. You can read their reactions to this honor at csnbaltimore.com.